What the business is, man. You should play up on out to the Q, man. I'm back. You hear me? We about to get back into it. Young Thug's Rico case, Rico trial is still ongoing. You know, I'm gonna stay tapped in with y'all and keep y'all informed, and I want to be informed as well. So we're gonna get into this. We're gonna watch this. Shout out to all the moderators. Shout out to everybody that support the channel. We just hit 35K. Went up and up, man. Other than that, man, let's get into it, man. Shout out the gang. Free Thug. Oh, I'm gonna have to hide my camera too. I forgot, y'all. I'm gonna hide my camera. Deactivate, actually. It works better when my camera's hidden, if you wondering why, if you don't know. Let's get into this shit, man.
Good afternoon, everybody. Again, we're going to go ahead and get back on the record in the matter of the state of Georgia versus Khalif Adams et al. In 22 SC 183572. Go ahead and just take roll again. Mr. Beebe and Mr. Partridge, good afternoon. Mr. Stillwell, Mr. Botts, and Mr. Shard, good afternoon, gentlemen. Mr. Williams, Mr. Steele, and Mr. Adams, good afternoon, gentlemen. Mr. Mender, Ms. Fagan, good afternoon. Mr. Kendrick and let's see, Mr. Miss Hingerty, good afternoon. All right. Mr. Huey and Mr. Matthews, good afternoon, gentlemen. Mr. Myrick and Ms. Bernard, good afternoon. All right. Let's see, Mr. Nichols.
How you say
Mr.
guilty
Dunbar.
already? Your ass crazy.
Ms. Westmoreland, good afternoon. All right. Mr. Adams and Ms. Callan, good afternoon. Mr. Blaylock and Mr. Hill, good afternoon. Mr. Dorsey and Mr. Jimenez, good afternoon. Mr. Eppinger and Mr. Johnson, good afternoon. All right, Mr. Ryan and Ms. D. Williams, good afternoon. All right, wonderful.
Hey man, please. All I want to say is please, everybody, please, if you have not already, please smash that like button. I appreciate everybody. Shout out to the gang. We in here tapped in with the watch party, you feel me? We in here reacting and watching and seeing what's going on with YSL and them. Please smash that motherfucking like. D-Nice said he gonna beat his watch. What up, DT? Steven ass crazy. Appreciate you too, D-Nice, man. I'm gonna keep up the work, bro. Y'all keep tapping in. I'm gonna stay tapping in with y'all. You already know. It's for the culture, baby. Free thugging them.
All right, ladies, Miss Love and Miss Hilton. And who do you have in the middle with you again? Do you,
That's my
good afternoon. Hi. Mr. Randolph, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
All right. All right, okay, Mr. Steele, is Mr. Persinger outside for us?
Correct. You want me to go get it now?
I'll just have some, one of our deputies summon him. Can we summon Mr. Persinger, please? Mr. Persinger, good afternoon, sir. If you would please approach the witness stand. Once you get there, before you sit down, turn and face Deputy Ingram and be sworn as a witness, please.
Ms. Ryan, so I affirm testimony you will bear the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I do. Have a seat, state, and spell his first and last name, of course. Loud into the mic.
Jim Persinger, Persinger.
That's a hell of a name. Persinger.
May I, Your Honor?
You may, whenever you're ready.
Baby
sir.
Grizz was good, gang.
Good afternoon, everyone, Your Honor. Madam, Mr. District Attorneys, co-indictee lawyers, Mr. Adams. Mr. Persinger, can you do me a favor and educate this honorable court on what your occupation is?
Judge, may I remove the mask?
Yeah, yes, sir. You can take your mask off if you want to, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. So I'm a digital forensics, cybercrime, and software developer for law enforcement.
And, Your Honor, may I approach, I've marked Defendant's Exhibit number 8. May I approach Mr. Persinger?
Have you already shown it to Ms. Love and her colleagues?
Of course.
Okay, all right. Yes, you may, sir.
I'm going to approach you with the court's permission, show you Defendant's Exhibit number 8. Just do me a favor, look at that, and tell this honorable court whether you recognize that document.
I do.
And what is the document?
It is a copy of my CV.
And is it accurate and complete to the best of your knowledge?
It does.
Your Honor, I move for purposes of this hearing, Mr. Williams, number 8.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, defendant's 8 for the purpose of motions admitted.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Mr. Persinger, if you need to review your, or refer to your CV, you may. It's in evidence now, okay?
Yes, sir.
Tell the honorable court that you need to do that. Where do you work and what is your title?
I work for PM Investigations, and I'm the CEO.
And can you tell us roughly how many cases as a digital forensic specialist you have been involved with?
About 3,500.
And are all those criminal cases, or are they civil cases? What type of cases?
It's both.
All right. And have you conducted investigations of cellular telephones as part of your casework?
I have.
And roughly how many cellular telephones have you analyzed, handled?
Approximately 600.
Okay. And how did you get to be here today? Who contacted you?
Your office did.
Have you ever been retained to work with the prosecution on a case?
I have.
All right. Can you do me a favor and educate the Honorable Judge Glanville and everyone who is here on the types of cases you've been involved with?
Malik, what's good,
Criminal
broski?
cases.
From murder, child pornography, intellectual property, hacking, just about any kind of data that involves, a person's use.
And let's talk about your prior work experience. Please educate this honorable court and all about some of your work prior to PM investigations.
I'm a retired Cobb County police officer. I worked for a company called Interface Electronics. I started a company called JB Enterprises. Both of them are software and hardware companies that actually install mainframes and routers and servers and different types of network components.
And how long have you been in technology?
About 40 years,
And have you been a programmer also?
about 35 of those years.
Do you have any type of professional licensing or board memberships in this field?
I'm a licensed private investigator, a licensed private investigator instructor. I'm post-certified instructor, which is somebody that can train law enforcement so they can get credit. I'm a member of GAPI, which is the Georgia Association of Private Investigators. I'm also a member of the American Digital Society for e-discovery and digital forensics.
Let's talk about your education and training, if you don't mind.
I have some college. Mainly, I focused on developing software. I've learned from not only the software vendors, from law enforcement, and then creating some of my own software tools along the way.
Are you a digital forensic and cellular telephone examiner instructor?
I am.
Can you please explain and describe what you've done?
In part, I created an application that's called CATIE, C-A-T-I-E, which stands for Capture and Track Investigative Evidence. It's exclusively for law enforcement that allows them to take data in, such as cellular data, plot it, analyze it to determine if it was, for example, text messages that were opened, or to get a longitude and latitude out of the data.
And have you taught law enforcement in forensics?
I have.
And who have you taught?
FBI, GBI, Secret Service, Homeland Security, wide variety of law enforcement agencies, from the police to the sheriff's department, not only here in Georgia, but in several different states. The Canadian Border Police, I've had people come from the UK and from Australia as well.
Have you assisted in any research or writing any documents in your field?
I have.
Can you tell this honorable court and the parties what you've done?
Working with Dr. Jim Tanner out of Boulder, Colorado, to develop content that monitors sex offenders, to help with software to help law enforcement, primarily probation officers, track a user's data to see what they're looking at, if they're looking at child pornography or what they're doing with their internet activity.
And for the honorable court reporter, Tanner's T-A-N-N-E-R?
I'm sorry?
Tanner, you said T-A-N-N-E-R?
Correct.
Have you produced any content or done any software development in this field?
I have.
Can you tell
Rudolph,
us
what's good,
about
nigga?
The primary tool called Field.
Hey, shout out everybody in the chat, man. We got 50 in the chat. Appreciate every single one of y'all in here. Please, 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 if you haven't already, smash that like button. We in here reacting and viewing live. Young Thug is live in court right now, so we reacting to that right now. Smash the like. That's all I can say. Shout out everybody.
Search.
What up, Rudolph?
I have 32,000 users worldwide. Again, would include our military, the Canadian Border Police down to Australia, over from the UK, and just about every state in the United States.
Do you ever write custom software to aid law enforcement to collect data from a cell phone or a computer?
Yes.
You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so that's Katie, but I also have ICE, which stands for In Case of Internet Emergency. I'm the first 911 button. The software is actually patented. It allows a child to press a button, it collects information, it goes to law enforcement so that law enforcement can analyze why the child pressed the button, if the button was pressed because of depression or because of cyberbullying or something related to.
Do you have any patents?
I do.
Can you describe them, what you have?
So the latest is called Iron Shield. It's a new type of firewall. It uses a process that is similar to 36 Rubik cubes on the inside of one Rubik's Cube, constantly changing the algorithms.
Shout out Tampa,
that
shout out Tampa,
allows
Florida in this thing.
Somebody who needs to have access only limited to that individual, where a hacker wouldn't be able to figure out those 36 different combinations because they're constantly changing. Second to that would be the IC, the in case of internet emergency.
How about copyrights, trademarks?
I have those as well.
Can you explain what you've done?
They consist of everything from not only Katie, Icy, the Iron Shield, other variations of those that deal with digital forensics or cybercrime.
Have you ever written or customized software to aid law enforcement to track internet evidence?
Yes.
Can you tell this honorable court and the parties and the observers what you've done?
Yeah, that would be the primary tool of Katie. There's over 300 different modules embedded into this one application.
Hey, shout out everybody in the chat, man. I'm gonna pause it one more time, then I'm gonna let this shit go for a minute. Shout out to Joe Martin Associates LLC. What's good with you, man? Please, please, please smash that like. And that's all I ask. It's gonna take the channel and the stream a long way. We can get this bitch jumping. We looking at right now, this is live, Thug is in court as we speak. Let's get into it.
It allows you not only to make a forensic image of a hard drive, of a flash drive, of an SD card. Katie will let you analyze it. It'll let you create your reports. It'll let you go out to the internet and do different analysis based on the data or email extractions and looking at what's called email headers.
I put this honorable court and the parties on notice in a February 8th, 2023, 6:34 p.m. filing that we would attempt to qualify you under Daubert. It's a case you may not know, but it's a case the court's aware of, to sell, cite historical location data, the manner and use of cellular telephones, the capability of cellular telephones, the capability of obtaining information from computers and cellular telephones, the reading of service provider information and records, and the like. And I wrote in the like because the prosecution still owes us some discovery. They haven't given us their expert reports. I want to ask you about those categories that I've alerted this honorable court and the parties. Have you ever been qualified as an expert in those fields before?
I have.
Can you please educate this honorable court what courts you have been so qualified?
Just about every venue in Georgia, including the northern federal districts, out in California, New York, Florida, in both state and federal courts, Michigan, Texas, a few others, North and South Carolina.
Have you ever been not accepted, not qualified as an expert?
I have not.
Have you ever been asked by courts to come in as the, quote, expert's expert?
I have.
Can you describe that?
Two digital forensics stood upon the court. With their analysis, they were quite different between each other. The court asked me to review
Heard. What's good
sets
with you,
of
Queen?
data
How
to
you been?
determine if one data set was more reliable or more accurate than the other.
And where was that, if you can tell?
Judge Bodiford in Cobb County.
All right. And I know Judge Bodford, but for people who don't, Superior Court?
Correct.
I'd like to talk with you about the process of analyzing a cell phone, if you don't mind.
Okay.
The methodology behind it.
Yes.
So that the honorable court can make a proper determination. How many phases are there if you can break it down into such a criteria?
Well, typically there's three.
Can you explain and go slow, just each one, and say, you know, when you're going to the second one?
So the first phase is called the collection phase. And that usually has two typical processes involved. One would be a validation. Now that validation means that somebody has given you some piece of data and you're collecting it. So if it were a computer, for example, I would do what's classified as hashing. Now, hashing is a mathematical formula that validates one file against another file to make sure that they are in fact equal. We sometimes consider that to be a digital fingerprint of that file. The second one would be what we call a null hypothesis process. Now, in the world of technology, most of us would understand that we have a 1 or a 0. Those both have value. You take 1 minus 1, that 0 is a value. 1 plus 1 being 2, that would be a value. But that null hypothetical is it's empty. There's nothing there. It's not even equivalent to a space on a space bar, because the space on a space bar is hexadecimal 20. So that has a value. So that process allows us to take data side by side and validate it. And we do that by going to the original source. If it were a cell phone, for example, and the cell phone provider, AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, or somebody similar, delivered data to somebody by way of subpoena. We would take that data, and then if it was presented to me, I would validate it. I would look at the subpoena response and see what was provided to that individual. And then comparing those two side by side and making sure there is no differences between the two. So that's your collection phase.
Is there a second phase?
The second phase is your analysis.
Can you explain that?
So you're basically going to take data and compare it to something. For example, if I sent you an email and you called me and said, "Did you send this email?" And I said, "No." Then I have to do some kind of validation to that. I have to look into it. So beyond looking at who, I have to see if it's factual. I have to see if it's phony, if it's fake, or is there something else with the data? So during that analysis, I'm going to determine the who and if it's real or not. And in those processes, it allows me to help pin down who the user potentially was.
Is there any more to the analysis phase, phase 2?
The second part would be, I don't trust one tool. I use more than one, and I try to use 2. That identification, that verification says that one product, for example, gets results that can be identified by using a second tool, and they match. So I may not do that to every record, but I may take a sampling, for example, 100 rows from each, run it through 2 different tools, and make sure I get the same output to that. If I do, then I know I can trust the tool. Tools get applications, they get updated all the time. So we have to make sure that we revalidate those, that they're good, and that we're getting the right results from that.
And if they do not balance with one another, then what would you do?
I have to either incorporate a third tool to see if I can make it to decipher the reason for why the two aren't equaling, or I may get back in touch with the software development company to find out why one tool is reporting one and another one's reporting something else.
You mentioned the third phase. Is that what we're up to?
Well, the third phase is nothing more than report writing. So I take the collection from the first phase and the second phase, and I may do screenshots. I may actually do the actual data itself. I may actually copy and paste it into a report, and then I write about it.
In the case involving Mr. Jeffrey Williams, have you looked at some of the information that we have been provided by the Honorable District Attorney's Office of Fulton County?
I have.
I've given you access to that?
You have.
Okay. Have you seen any reports, I've given you any reports of the prosecution's supposed experts on computer analysis or cell phone analysis?
I have not seen any reports.
Okay, and that's because I don't have any yet. But let me ask you the following questions under the case, if the court does.
Shout out DQ from 503. I see you, nigga.
The reliability of your potential testimony. And if you've already explained this, just tell the court and remind the court you've explained this. I'm just going in order. The techniques or the methodology or the process, as you called it, that you use, can that be tested?
Yes.
And is that what you explained to us with the different tools?
Correct.
All right. You've already covered that, because if you need to cover it more, I'm not trying to stop you.
No, that would include that process.
Okay. Whether your process or analysis or methodology has been subject to peer review publication?
Yes.
It has?
Yes, it's the same tools. There might be an exception to that on the tools, but again, I'm going to use a second or a third to validate the tool that I may write myself. For example, in doing some of the plotting, I use Penn Essentials. I know that it's accurate because I wrote it, but I can validate that against the other commercially available products that are out there and get the same results.
Okay. The known or potential rate of error?
Yes.
You've already talked about that with the third tool, et cetera. Is that what you were referring to?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then the general degree of acceptance in your professional community on how you go through your methodology?
It would be a standard.
Okay. Same thing law enforcement would use?
Yes.
And then finally, your training, your experience, your expertise, you've already explained that in detail. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
I was not trying to cut you off at all. Mr. Persinger, I want to thank you very much. Your Honor, I move, and I'd like to qualify Mr. Jim Persinger, as an expert in the items that I've already noticed.
Let me see if I got them right. Cell site historical location data, the manner and use of cellular telephones, the capability of cellular telephones, capability of obtaining information from computers and cellular phones, reading of service provider information and records. I'm not going to qualify them on anything as the like, because you will need to do a little more homework on that. But are those the areas you want to qualify as an expert?
I do, and if you wanted to be more general, Your Honor, it would be digital forensics, cybercrime, and cellular data. But that encompasses everything you just said. Is that true, Mr. Persinger, what the Honorable Court said in my criteria?
It is true.
Okay.
You said digital crime and what?
It's digital forensics.
Digital forensics?
Yes, sir. Cybercrime and cellular data.
I feel that DT. I see you.
I don't have
I
any
see
other
you,
questions unless the court has questions for me. I was going to pass the witness.
Mr. Persinger, how many times have you been qualified?
Do y'all think? Let me ask y'all this. Do y'all think the judge is being fair, or do you think the judge is being being extra, or do you think, hey, he just doing his regular, or do you think he's being unfair? Let me ask y'all that. Let me know in the chat.
In state and federal courts in Georgia?
I kind of lost count, Judge, but I don't know, a couple of hundred, 300.
You said 300?
Yes, sir.
What about courts out of state?
150, 200.
Has our district attorney's office hired
He's
you
biased.
before?
You think he being biased?
It's been some time. I believe it was under the last district attorney's
Okay,
office.
all right. Madam, do you wish to voir dire the witness?
Yeah, I just asked one other question based upon what the court just said.
Sure, I'll let you ask one more question.
Just following up on the court, if the court's interested, did you testify and work with the prosecution in Cobb County under Chuck Boring or Charles Boring on the case of State of Georgia versus Ross Harris, the baby left in the car case? Did you work with the prosecutors on that case?
I did.
Okay. And did you testify at that trial?
I did.
All right. Thanks, Your Honor.
All right, anything further? Go ahead. You wish to voir dire the witness, Ms. Weintraub?
Briefly, Your Honor.
All right.
Hi, Mr. Persinger. I'm Betsy Weintraub. I just have a few questions for you. First of all, with regard to your testimony, your previous testimony in the state of Georgia, have you testified in state court in Georgia since July 1st of 2022?
Have I testified in just, yes, I have.
State court in Georgia?
Yes, I have.
And were you qualified as an expert after July 1st of 2022?
I was, yes.
I'm asking because the law changed at that point, so I'm just asking about if you've been qualified since. And what kind of, do you have any formal training in the capability of cell phones?
I'm sorry, could you elaborate a little bit, please?
Well, that was, you were offered as an expert in the capabilities of cell phones.
The capabilities of them, yes.
Yes. So do you have any formal training in that?
I have designed software around those capabilities to allow extraction of the data related to those cell phones.
How would you define the capability of a cell phone?
Well, I mean, that could include everything from surfing the internet to text messages or what we call MMS, multimedia services, to analyzing the metadata of the data that's found on a cell phone and extracting that information. Phone call logs would include the apps and the versions of the apps and when they were updated and just what that phone's capabilities were, if it could handle, you know, like a browser that had several pages open at some point, what the processes of that cell phone would do with those pages open.
So a lot of that stuff is going to be stuff that people are kind of learning how to do for themselves these days, as far as the capabilities.
Well, again, the capability of what that phone can do, analyzing of those databases that are on there to see what that user was doing at a particular time.
Okay, so you're talking about more than
Yeah, one thing about it, it's not going to be an easy win. I do agree with you on that.
Well, not just that,
definitely
but,
agree with you on that. I ain't going to cap.
As for an example, a phone that's never been used and then initializing it, making it active, and then seeing what its potential breaches are, what could happen to the data, how a person would get to the access of that data, so that if I looked at that same similar kind of phone, an iPhone, for example, and it came into the lab, then I could analyze it knowing what those breaches may consist of.
Okay. And then what have you been qualified as an expert in exactly?
Well, digital forensics, which is usually the analyzing of data of the past. That means it's already occurred. Recovering of an email, seeing if somebody went to a website, seeing if somebody used what we call data destruction, some kind of anti-forensics process that may have been employed on that phone to see if there was an app that was password protected or if somebody compromised it. And then of the cybercrime, which is data that's happening right now, analyzing system log files. One of my websites is actually intrusionforensics.com, which is the collection of live log files that come from a server where it's been compromised. And then of the cell phone data, I've been provided in several different cases where I've had data that's come from the provider or come from opposing and analyzed that data to see if a person was, for example, on the phone prior to an accident, or did somebody factually send a text message? Did it come from that, or was it spoofed from another source?
And so you've been qualified in each of those three areas.
I have.
As an expert.
Yes.
And the recent testimony that you gave in Georgia State Court, do you know what area that was in?
It would be in Gilmer County. I was also in Gwinnett County.
Let me narrow my question a little bit. Were you qualified as an expert in each of those areas in each county?
Different. In Gwinnett County, it was cell phone. In Gilmer County, it was computer related.
Okay. And have you ever been qualified as an expert in all three in a single case?
I've had several cases that's happened where an individual would, for example, bring me a computer, bring me a cell phone. I analyzed both of them. Gilmer did have a part of it that dealt with the cell phone, but it did focus mainly on the computer. And that's where you could see the cell phone synced up to the computer, and where the government didn't look at the computer, even though they had learned that through the cell phone analysis that it had synced up with a computer.
What kind of experience do you have reading service provider records?
I've got 6 at the lab now on that very topic that deal everything from T-Mobile, Verizon. I even have some old Sprint that's come into play.
And what does that involve?
It comes by way of the subpoena, and it'll be a PDF or a CSV, which is equivalent to like an Excel file. It'll have longitude and latitude. It'll have data usage. It'll have the azimuth in there. And I've got to take that information out of a long string. No two providers have the data the same. So I have to parse through it, identify that this is factually the longitude and latitude. In some cases, It'll actually be flipped. It'll be latitude and then longitude. You'll end up in the Indian Ocean, for example. So I've got to take that data, analyze it, and make sure that the results are matching with what the data is supporting. And that data sometimes comes off of a cell phone, where I'll get location off of a cell phone, and I'll match that with a service provider and see if they're in sync.
Okay, and what have you reviewed in this particular case?
A series of data that came, I believe, from your office that included Cellebrite dump files and the provider records that were provided to law enforcement. I believe there was some search warrant affidavits that were in that data as well.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
You may.
Okay, I wanted to ask one more question about what you reviewed in this case. What was your finding after reviewing those items?
That's going to draw an objection.
What are you reviewing those items for? What purpose?
Your Honor, it's protected, first of all, at this point under attorney work product, and second of all, it goes beyond Daubert.
Yeah, it does go beyond Daubert at this point in time. So, anything else?
That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, okay. Anything further, Mr. Steele?
No, sir.
All right. Mr. Persinger, can I get you to step outside for just a second, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, any argument on behalf of the state?
Your Honor, we would ask that the court narrow the area of expertise to, at this point, it looks like cellular data has been what he's been reviewing. At least that's as much as he's told the court. He should be qualified in areas that thus far are completely irrelevant to this trial.
How would digital forensics and cybercrime not be relevant to this particular trial at this point in time?
Well, if he's not reviewing any of them, then
He's got to review some of it in order to give an opinion about in relationship, because all three of these are kind of related. You got anything else?
as long as Your Honor, we just want to narrow down to those three things that were mentioned.
I mean, I think that from the court's perspective, digital forensics, cybercrime, and cellular data fairly encompass cell site historical data, location data, the manner and use of cellular telephones, the capability of cellular telephones, the capability of obtaining information from computers and cellular records, and the reading of service provider information and records. All those fall in that particular genre. So I'm going to qualify him as an expert in those three general areas of digital forensics, cybercrime, and cellular data. I believe he does meet the Daubert test. I'll go ahead and just for the purposes. Okay, all right. So no objection under Daubert? Okay, all right. Anything further, Mr. Steele? All right, then I'll qualify Mr. Persinger in those aforementioned areas. All right. Do we have anything else for Mr. Let me go ahead and call Mr. Persinger back, please. Mr. Persinger, I was just going to excuse you as a witness. We'll go ahead. And I've qualified you as an expert in the areas of digital forensics, cybercrime, and cellular.
Man, I ain't gonna lie, bro. It's getting interesting in this motherfucker, boy. I ain't gonna lie, boy. Motherfucking, they got experts in there. This. I bet you at the end of this case, it's gonna be one of the most expensive cases as well. Watch what I say.
Data. We'll probably call you sometime in the next several months. You'll need to stay in touch with Mr. Steele, and we'll tell you when you need to come back, okay?
Yes, sir.
But don't discuss your testimony named by except the attorneys in this case, all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, councils. I believe that was what we were supposed to take up for today. So tomorrow, just looking forward, Wednesday the 26th, do we still have Dr. Nielsen on board, Mr. Steele?
Yes, sir.
All right, Dr. Nielsen, we will start at 10 a.m. So if you all could come for 9:30, so we can start at 10 o'clock, and we'll go until we probably around the noontime hour, about 12:30ish or thereabouts. And then we'll pick up in the afternoon and see if necessary. So do I have any other ministerial inquiry of me at this point in time? Anyone?
Not with the state ground.
All right, anything on behalf of any of the defense?
Not on behalf of Mr. Williams.
Okay, all right, then we'll be in recess until tomorrow at for 9:30 for an anticipated 10 o'clock start time, okay? All right, we're in recess. Thank you.
Let's see if we came back. Damn. Oh, well, it was a short one today, right? Well, shit, we got a little razzle dazzle, you know what I'm talking about? Let me see. Yeah, man. So shout out to everybody in the chat, man. Appreciate y'all. So I guess that was a little short, afternoon sesh. If they pop back in, I'll let you know. Shit, man. There's a lot of things going on, man. Recess for the day. we're gonna see it. If we pop back in, y'all know, peace and love, Snow Gang, Snow Gang. Shout out my nigga Flossmore DT. Yeah, shout out everybody that came through, man. Please